Why do some body butter fragrances last and maintain and others fade away? And why does some body butter feel really greasy and then silky smooth? Those are two major questions that I always get when making body butter. And over the years, I've been able to figure out ways to maintain fragrance in body butter and also maintain a nice silky smooth finish with body butter. Hi, I'm Nicole and I help small business owners and DIYers craft their fragrances and create formulas. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you two tests. One test is going to be focused on fragrance and development, and the other is going to be focused on getting rid of greasiness and having a more silky feel. Let's not waste any more time and get straight into this video. Now, first up, we're going to have test one, and this is going to be solely on fragrance. Now, within this test, I want to focus on two major types of formulas that people create. A lot of people either want to have all refined products or all unrefined products. And I'm going to test out both of those formulas and see how fragrance interacts with each. I want to see how the fragrance interacts, what are going to be the best fragrances for each, and if one holds fragrances better than the other. But first, we're going to get into the unrefined formula. Now, to start off, we're going to have three major ingredients to test these formulas. We're going to start off first with African shea butter. Now, African shea butter in its raw form is going to be a yellowish tint. It's going to have a bit of a waxy feel to it. It's going to be a bit greasy, very oily, but it's deeply nourishing and has a lot of hydrating qualities for your skin. It's really great for dry, patchy skin as well. Now, it's also really good to know is that it's going to have more of an earthy smell to it, and that's what's really going to come across in your body butters. Now, the same can go for cocoa butter. Now, this is going to have more of like a chocolatey, nutty note to it as well. It's a lot firmer. It's a harder butter that's going to bring firmness to your body butter. But with this, it comes in like a big block, so it can be really hard to break up if you're using this for your business. And they also do have chips in the raw form as well. Now you can see that it is really easy to glide onto the skin, and it absorbs very quickly as well. Now, also, we're going to be using unrefined coconut oil. Now, the biggest thing with unrefined coconut oil I find is that there are some brands where it will have a bit of a coconutty scent to it as well. You can also find ones that do not have a scent at all, but I have found a couple that do have a bit of a scent to it, but naturally, typically, it's not going to have a fragrance, and that's typically something that they're adding into the product. So you just want to be a little bit wary of that, but it's going to be solid at room temperature, but it glides really nicely onto your skin. Now, the next ingredient is going to be adding in fragrance, because I want to see how this particular fragrance is going to interact with this body butter with the raw ingredients. Let me know down below how you think that this fragrance will react to these products. Now, that's it for the first formula, and I'm going to share with you how I feel like this fragrance interacted with this particular formula. But first, we're going to look at the unrefined formula. Now, next, we're going to be having the refined versions of each of these ingredients, because I want this to be a fair bet. I want to see how each of these ingredients changes the formulas by having them be the exact same still. So first, we're going to start off with our shea butter. This is still African shea butter, but it's going to be refined. It's, as you can see here, that yellowish color is gone. It's very pale. It's a very like white, almost off-white color. It's still very soft, still very easy to use, but you can see how much it changes the color and the overall fragrance. With this, it's not going to have that rich, nutty fragrance, that earthy fragrance. It has maybe a little subtle fragrance, but it's really, really hard to tell. But it glides onto your skin really easy. It's very moisturizing still, but it is missing that color and that fragrance, which can be really ideal when you're making your products. Now, next up, we're going to have the refined cocoa butter. Now, this is also going to still be very firm, and it's also going to be losing that rich yellowish color. Cocoa butter also has a rich yellow color as well. The refined version is going to be a little bit of a off-white color, and it's not going to have that rich cocoa fragrance in it as well. So those are the two things you're going to be losing, is that scent and the color. Now, I'm also going to be adding refined coconut oil. Now, the biggest difference between the refined and unrefined coconut oil is simply the texture and the consistency. When it comes to the unrefined, this is going to be solid at room temperature, but with your refined, this is going to be liquid. Now it's still going to have the nice texture. It's still going to absorb quickly into the skin. It's still going to be lightweight and easy to absorb. So that's going to be still the same either way with both formulas. It's just the overall consistency and texture that's going to be different. Now that brings me to the fragrance for this body butter. Now I want you to comment down below, how do you think that this is going to interact with this body butter formula? I definitely want to hear what you think the changes will be. Let me know how you think it's going to interact and if it's going to change the fragrance overall. In my opinion, both of these formulas hold onto fragrance well. I find that when you are looking at more of an unrefined product, you have a lot more earthy fragrances that are naturally within those ingredients, and they're going to be there for the finished product. So you have to find fragrances that are going to pair well with those natural earthy fragrances that you're going to get from the unrefined options. Now, when it comes to unrefined, you're going to have more of a smoky, maybe a little bit of hint of sweet chocolatey fragrance with this. And within those types of fragrances, you want to really make more notes that are going to be more sweet. You want to do more dessert-like fragrances. You want to do something that's a little bit more subtle. So I'm going to share with you a few examples of fragrances that are going to work for both unrefined and refined products. Because at the end of the day, you can add fragrances to both of these and have them work great for your brand, but it's about what fragrances you use that are going to be compatible with each. Now, I have to mention that when it comes to the unrefined products and those ingredients, there's not much of a fragrance. Some of them have like a slight fragrance to them. Like I noticed that the shea butter has a slight hint of like an earthy fragrance, but they're not overwhelming and they're not going to be overbearing to the other fragrances. So you can use almost any kind of fragrance when it comes to the unrefined products, because you have a wide base. There's no other fragrances that are lingering that are going to interact with the other fragrances. So you really have the ball in your court with the fragrances that you want to choose. But if you want to use unrefined products because you love the benefits of those ingredients, because they are great and they are going to have more benefits than the unrefined products, then by using that, you just want to find fragrances that are going to work well within those products. Now I want to look at some fragrances and see which side should it be on, the unrefined or the refined body butter. Now vanilla bean, we're going to start off with vanilla bean, and this is going to pair well with your unrefined product because this is going to pair great with the cocoa fragrance. They're not going to clash and it's going to be the perfect combination. Now, also with Coconut Paradise, this is a really great fragrance. I love this. It smells very fruity. It's like a tropical fragrance that's also really light, and the coconut comes out really strong. But I think that the cocoa and like the earthly fragrances in the unrefined is going to be too overpowering. So I would add this to the refined body butter because there's not going to be any clash. It's going to really be able to shine through properly. It's not going to be clashing with the cocoa fragrance or like those earthly fragrances from the shea butter. Now, the next fragrance I want to look at is mixed berry. Now, let me know down below, what do you think mixed berry is going to do? And which side do you think it should be on? Because for mixed berry, I feel like it can go either way. Mixed berry can go really great with that cocoa fragrance and that earthly fragrance. You can add this as a dessert element. So I'm going to put this right in the middle, but let me know down below which side you think that this should be on. Now, the next fragrance that I really want to look at is going to be Juicy Pear. Now, Juicy Pear, when I think of pears and sweet, I don't think that the cocoa is going to pair well. I think it's going to overpower the peach. I've tried the peach within the unrefined product, and it was just too overbearing. So this is going to go perfectly with your refined products. Now coconut rose, this is going to be a really strong rose fragrance. It has really nice notes of coconut as well, and I think it's a really nice fresh florally fragrance, and that cocoa is going to clash. It's not going to pair very well together. It's going to be too strong to pair those two together. So this is going to be perfect for your refined product so that it can really shine through in your product. Now, the next one is going to be oat milk and honey. Now, oat milk and honey, this is going to be a really nice fragrance that's going to pair really well with the cocoa and earthly fragrance. It's going to be a nice subtle fragrance that you can have if you want to do like a more, unscented or natural type. That will pair perfectly. Now with cinnamon swirl, this is another one that's really sweet, like dessert, and this is going to pair really well with the cocoa and the earthly fragrance because it's going to come together with that spice. So this works perfectly for the unrefined product. Now, juicy mango, this is going to remind me of the peach again, where it's going to be too overpowering and it's going to be too strong with the cocoa. So this is going to be a really great, standalone in your refined product, because it's going to really be able to shine through and you get those nice, sweet, juicy notes that you want. It's going to pair, and it's not going to be anything that's going to clash with this. Now, let me know down below if you think there's other fragrances that would pair well with either or, and how you always add in your fragrances depending on what ingredients you use. But now we have test 2. Now within test 2, this is going to be focused on absorption. And I want to see how the formulas interact to have to be more absorbing onto the skin and not to leave a more greasy feel. So I'm going to be sharing with you 2 formulas. Now, both of these formulas have the same base. I'm only going to be using mango butter, cocoa butter, and coconut oil. And then I'm going to be changing the 2 other ingredients, because I only want this to be 5 ingredients or less, to share with you that you can have the most basic formula and still have it be too greasy, but also make alternatives for it to be less greasy. And we're going to see which one is best in this case. Now for the first formula in test 2, this is going to be mango butter, cocoa butter, and coconut oil. And then we're also going to be adding in lanolin, and we're going to also add in castor oil. So now that we have the formula created, we are just going to see how do these 2 ingredients affect the absorption of the overall product. Now I went ahead and measured out 0.05 ounces of the product, and I'm going to rub that on my arm to see how it absorbs into the skin and see how those ingredients interacted to help with the absorption, or is it going to be very greasy? Now comment down below and let me know how you think this is going to be, if you think it's going to be greasy or if it's going to absorb very quickly. Now, in just a little bit, I'm going to share with you how long I am allowing this to absorb, because I'm going to have a timer going. And as you can see, this is still having a bit of a greasy film. It's taking me a bit to be able to rub it in. I'm still having to rub it in, and you can see the greasiness and a bit of an oily film on my arm. And my arm still feels pretty greasy. I still have some on my hand as well. And I'm still trying to massage my whole forearm. So this is taking a bit to absorb. But let's get into the second formula and see what these ingredients are and how they're going to affect the absorption for the next formula. Then within the second test, this is going to still have the mango butter, cocoa butter, and coconut oil, but then we're also going to be adding in arrowroot powder, and we're going to also be adding in IPM. Now the major difference with this formula is that we're going to have arrowroot powder and IPM added to this. So let's see how those 2 ingredients change the overall absorption of this product. Now comment down below and let me know what you think about this one and how you think this is going to absorb, if it's going to make a difference. Now, of course, we want this to be a fair test, so I'm going to be taking the same 0.05 ounces of this body butter with the arrowroot powder and the IPM to see how this absorbs into the skin. And I'm going to be adding this onto my arm, and I'm going to have onto my other arm, and then I'm going to have the timer going for this as well. Now, before I reveal my thoughts on this, I definitely want you to comment down below, how do you think the difference is between both of these formulas? I feel like I'm not rubbing as much with this formula, and it seems to be absorbing, and I don't see a lot of greasy or oily film on my arm. But let me know down below what you think about this formula. Now I'm going to get into the results in just a little bit, but first let's look at both arms. On the left is the arm that's going to have the lanolin and the castor oil, and then the arm on the right is going to have the IPM and the arrowroot powder. Now just by looking at my arms, I just give you a better idea of what you think the results are going to be. Comment down below which side you are on as far as absorption on my skin that you can see. So now for our results. Now, when it comes to the absorption, I feel as though when it came to the first formula, it was a lot more greasy and it had more of a sticky feel to the skin. It took me about a full minute and a half to fully get it to be absorbed into my skin. As you can see, as I was rubbing it in the clip before, it really took a while for it to really absorb. Now with the second formula, I found that with that, it absorbed very quickly. It took me about 45 seconds for it to fully absorb into my skin. Now, the key ingredient to allowing for a product to really absorb quickly is the IPM and the arrowroot powder. Arrowroot powder is going to have properties to be able to absorb the oil, leaving a more powdery, silky finish, which is what you want and is ideal for a body butter. And the isododecaine or IPM is a perfect ingredient that's going to be alcohol based, that's going to help to dry down the product and give it a more dry, silky feel. You don't want your product to be too greasy. Now with these products, you can see that my skin still feels really moisturized, deeply nourished, not feel oily or greasy. There's no tacky feel or film. But if you look at both of my arms on this test, you can see that there's still a glossy, greasy finish on my arm, versus on the other side with the IPM and the arrowroot powder, is going to give me a more silky, powdery finish. And this really helps to have a well-rounded body butter formula. These two ingredients alone will help to elevate your formula. If you have a formula with more ingredients that has more oils, thicker oils, you can use the first formula that I showed, add IPM and arrowroot powder, and that will help get rid of the greasiness on its own. Using more lightweight oils in your product will also help with the less glossy and silky finish. And also using more, lightweight butters like a mango butter, a lot less greasy. It's a lot more of a powdery finish and a less glossy, greasy feel. And it's a lot better than using shea butter, and has a lot of the same benefits as well. Now, the only thing with this is that it's going to be a lot softer than shea butter. So you want to combat that with adding in more cocoa butter or cocoon butter, adding in beeswax. Those products are going to help to firm up your product and make it a lot more firm than with mango butter itself is going to make it a lot more of a softer product, and it will melt pretty quickly. Now, these are only two of the major issues that I've seen come up when it comes to making body butter. But if you really want to get the consistency and texture right every single time, then watch this video here where I share with you 8 tips and tricks I've learned over the years of making a body butter so that you can always get it right every single time. And I'll catch you in the next one.